24. So started back a little while, and yeah, give it a round of applause. We made it this far. Well, first off, we really want to thank Westminster College for hosting this event, and you're all going to have an opportunity to hear from Linda Muir, who's been so gracious in coordinating and just promoting and doing everything to make this event possible. So let's hear it for Linda Muir and Westminster College real quick. I know we've got quite a few new faces in the audience, and just to give you a quick rundown of what LaunchUp is, LaunchUp was organized, it was Jeremy Hanks' kind of brainchild, and Jeremy was an entrepreneur a few times over. He's still, starting new things, and that's why he's not here tonight. But he said, there needs to be kind of a jumping in point for new entrepreneurs to figure out how to navigate the ecosystem, to find other entrepreneurs, to figure out, what they know and what lessons they could learn quickly, really to be a community resource for entrepreneurs who don't necessarily have an entrepreneurship program at a university or otherwise. So that was the idea and concept behind LaunchUp, and entrepreneurs keep attending because we've forged some good friendships here, and with the clinics and the presenters and everything, it's really turned out to be kind of a fun organization. It's free, and I hope you guys enjoy the the presentations tonight. So quick thanks to our sponsors here. First, I want to point out Mustache Power. Mustache Power is Clark back here. Clark's in the booth. You say hi to Clark. He's the first one to arrive for every LaunchUp, and he's the last one to leave, and he does this all for free. So he live streams these events. He makes them he records them so that other entrepreneurs can look back if they're not able to attend and watch all these valuable lessons that are captured at these events. So Clark doesn't get a lot of recognition, so give just a hoop and a holler for Clark back there so he can hear you in the booth. Other sponsors, DOBA, that's Jeremy's organization, C7 Data Centers, the last event was there, Bateman IP and MWI. Josh from MWI is here. They do a lot of great SEO services, and if you just have questions to poke around, go talk to Josh. He knows a whole lot. And I'm not sure what this last font is on here. Oh, is that Goodwin Media? Who's that? Oh, Stuart. Yeah, Stuart Goodwin. Stuart does. He's put together our website and kind of maintains that for us as well. So thanks to Stuart. So quick rundown of the agenda for tonight. First, we're going to have Linda Muir. Linda, seasoned entrepreneur. She runs the entrepreneurship program here. She's the director. She's got some good stories that she may or may not share, but she's also some great lessons. Wonderful personality. I met Linda today, and I'd like to be her friend. And after Linda, we've got Chad Cannon. Chad is a PPC expert. He knows PPC, he knows lead generation, and that may be important to your business. If so, Chad's going to give us some important must-knows in the PPC world. And afterwards, remember, go track him down and get as much out of him for free as you can. Then we've got 3 great companies presenting tonight. The first is Mobonics. Mobonics, we'll let them tell you what they do, but they've won some recent great awards. They're backed by some great technology and some great minds with Jenny and Scott. The second company presenting is Brainiacs. We misspelled their name on the website in at least 2 places, so we apologize for that. But they're going to tell us about their learning platform. And then finally, we're going to hear from CupAd and their kind of alternative marketing methods. So with that, I want to turn the time over to Linda. So give her a big round of applause and welcome to LaunchUp 24.
Well, first I started out as just the welcoming committee from Westminster College, and they needed the AMP session, so I can tell you what not to do. But first, before I tell you what not to do, I want to thank you for coming to Westminster College. When Jeremy Hanks called me on the phone and asked if we would do this, I was thrilled to open our doors, and here's why. Westminster College loves entrepreneurs. Woo! And we're a private liberal arts college, and so we can be quite agile and flexible in what we do. And we actually launched an entrepreneurship program here in 2007. And it has been very, very successful for this reason. Our students are not going to go work for corporations for 25 years. they're going to start their own business. And it's interesting, MBA students, right now our entrepreneurship program is dedicated at the MBA level because we have limited resources, and we're launching it there, and then even spreading it to the undergraduate population as well. But you would think that a student is coming back to school so they can rise the corporate ladder and not have that glass ceiling. However, that is not the case, and I see it in so many places that students want to have their own independence. And I think it's wonderful here. We have there have been studies done that over 50% of MBA students are actually going to launch their own company. And I have to tell you, I have many students. I actually stalk my students, some who have already graduated, and we stay in contact very closely, and they are doing some killer LaunchUp, or some killer launches, LaunchUps, right? And we have a student launching his business. He won first place in our business plan competition. He's launching on 11/11/11, and you should see that in the news as well. So very exciting. So thank you so much for coming. And it was funny, when he asked me to do the AMP-UP session, I have to tell you, let me tell you why I work in education. I never planned, it's funny how our journey takes us in so many different places, as you know, and I never planned on being in academia. But I have to tell you, I did spend a lot of time in the corporate sector and then started my own business, which was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. And when they say blood, sweat, and tears, I promise all of us, we will have blood, sweat, and tears. But you want to know what is so wonderful? The reward is independence and liberation. And independence and liberation, working 17 and 18 hours a day and being okay with it and building equity in the process. Isn't that cool? We won't be our own boss, though, and I try to let students know that. So I also got to work in a business incubator and work with a lot of entrepreneurs after my experience as an entrepreneur. So now I'm a recovering entrepreneur. And I actually believe once you're an entrepreneur, you will always be. In academia right now, I teach entrepreneurship, and I mainly teach them what not to do, and I learn from them, because I have so many people tell me, you can't teach entrepreneurship in a classroom. And so I tell students that, and I say, well, let's go with it and actually capture killer skill sets that can help us be much better entrepreneurs. So instead of me telling you war stories about my own experience, I want to tell you some tidbits of advice that I share with students that I have seen over and over after interviewing entrepreneurs, after being an entrepreneur, and even stalking my student entrepreneurs. I think what you're doing this evening is probably one of the most important things that entrepreneurs do. And I had one of my students call me the other day and say, Linda, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that is so true. And here I am in a classroom telling my students, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And then I want to give them some type of knowledge. So honestly, it is all about networking. We're all 6 degrees of separations, and you wouldn't believe what could lead us where from an event that we went to. So continue your networking and be very strategic about it. I had a company in our business incubator. We used to do a networking event every month, and this is his success story. Just from a breakfast event that he went to, met somebody that he melded with. They had some synergy in their businesses, and the gentleman invested $1 million in his company. I think that's a pretty cool success story. Secondly, always think money last. Please, entrepreneurs, I have so many people come to me, and I was one of them. I chased money for 6 months. I knocked on every darn door, and I made a big mistake. I didn't chase sales. I chased investors. It was a good rejection lesson, but I chased investors. Please chase sales first. You can learn a lot about your business, and you get to own more of your business. When I have students come to me and say, the only thing I need is an investor, and then I look at how limited knowledge they have of their industry, of their consumer, and how unready they are to launch their business, they will never receive investment money. And there are stories over and over, anecdotal stories over and over about companies who have been successful because they didn't have money, because it requires you to be more innovative, more creative, and more resourceful. Very, very powerful. The next one is partners. Please be conscientious of your partners. It will be almost identical to marrying a spouse. And I've seen a lot of relationships, a lot of partnerships break up, including one that I have had I had a strain on from my own business, and it deeply saddens me, but it will always exist. And in our business incubator, we had a lot of partnerships that split where attorneys came in. So I encourage you, not just get a partner because they're your friend and it's fun one day. Remember, it's always fun in the beginning until money gets tight, and then you see the real people. So remember, make sure you feel free to have a honeymoon with your partner before you actually secure a relationship. Make sure they have complementary skills, not that they're your friends or your buddies. And then here's the one that I always tell people: written contracts are golden. Have written contracts right up front. And then next, it always takes 3 times longer, and 3 times longer for equity or for revenue to come in. So remember that. I have some people say, Linda, you're wrong. It takes 5 times longer. But 3 times longer, remember, rule of thumb, 3 times longer. The next one is be a market watchdog. I see a lot of entrepreneurs, when they're starting businesses, they get a little bit myopic, and here's why. They fall in love with their idea. They fall so heavily in love with their idea that I call it the slobbering love affair. And they forget a lot. They're not open-minded. They're not looking at what consumers are doing. They're not looking at the trends of the marketplace. They're so busy with this invention, and then when they finally get it to market, no one wants it because things have adjusted and shifted. Be a market watchdog. And remember, opportunities always come from the marketplace, right? Opportunities always come from the marketplace. You know, and I spent many years working for a very large corporation called Franklin Covey. And we got complacent, and here's why: because we were the giant, and we quit looking at how the market was shifting. And Franklin Covey taught me one of the best lessons was to always be looking at the marketplace and be a market watchdog, because that's where things are always changing, and it can come and bite you quickly, and you may not ever recover. And then finally, here's what I say. My background actually is in marketing, and I've actually consulted a lot of small businesses, and I have to tell you something. All of you need to be very good marketers. Marketing will make or break your company. I have seen superior products fail, and I have seen inferior products succeed, all because of marketing. Please learn as much as you can about marketing. Educate yourself. Look at Skull Candy. Skull Candy, to me alone, was a brilliant marketer, brilliant marketing company, and I think they've been very successful because of it. And you guys, I'm so sorry. I've actually been sick for about 6 days, and so I'm going to leave early because I have to go out of town soon. And finally, remember to ignore the naysayers. If you know you have something, and you've been doing your research, and you know consumers are accepting to your concept, ignore the naysayers. They will always exist. In fact, sometimes I think they can help motivate you. It's your customers that will tell you if you're going to succeed or not. It's not the influences around you. So with that, thank you so much for coming to Westminster College. And then I leave you with this. We have a Lectures in Entrepreneurship series that is in March and April, and we do it on every Wednesday for 7 weeks, and we bring extraordinary entrepreneurs in from every background, every industry to tell their story. And we actually have 70 students who actually sign up and take it for class, but we also open it up to the public. So I encourage you to participate in it. We are actually starting to fill seats and looking at getting a larger venue. And I have people all the time say, Linda, please put me on your database. Please put me on your database. So if you would like to get reminders of, we don't sell our database to anyone. If you would like to get reminders of some of the things we're doing here in the lecture series, I have a little sign-up sheet out on the table. So when you're done this evening, I encourage you to do it. And thanks for coming to Westminster. We love entrepreneurs.
Can we keep you up here for a quick Q&A? Let's open the floor to a quick Q&A. We got 2 minutes to ask Linda a couple questions. Hey, Linda, what's tuition like at Westminster right now?
It's really inexpensive for the return on investment.
Oh, yes, that's right. Well, you guys just got some really valuable advice from Linda, so thank you so much. Questions? Surely we got 2 questions out here.
When you say ignore the naysayers,
Yes.
that At what point should you stop ignoring this?
Yeah, I know, exactly. I think that's a really, really good point is where do you finally just throw in the towel? I think that's a really difficult decision, and I think one has to make that themselves. Now, if there is not a market for it, and it is demonstrated there is not a market, consumers are not receptive. See, I actually believe that you should get your product out even almost in the prototype stage to see if consumers are receptive of it. But so I can't really answer that. And here's why. I'm going to give you a story. I didn't give up either, and I should have. I didn't collect a paycheck for over a year, and I used to make really good money, and I'm glad I never gave up. Because the business wouldn't be here today. But let's talk about, Tim Westergren with Pandora? Pandora just went public. Are we all familiar with Pandora? Let me just give you this example and food for thought, and then you have to make that judgment call yourself. Tim Westergren launched his business way back in 2000, and he went through hell and back. He actually sacrificed more than most entrepreneurs ever would. He probably hampered a lot of personal friendships, invested a lot of his own money, was on his own living room floor crying at times, had employees suing him, and he struggled. And there's a case study that my students use, and we look at that case study, and half of them, I look at them and say, should he have given up? And they don't know it's Tim, and they don't know it's Pandora because he used to call his company Savage Beast. And a lot of them say, yes, how could you do that? You will never make money. He has got to give up. The company is never going to work. Now look at Tim today and look at Pandora through all of the sacrifice. And I have heard stories like this over and over and over. So that is a real difficult decision for one. And if there is not a market and there is no one receptive, I guess one has to give up. But we can have many stories told from entrepreneurs who said persistence is critical and to never give up. So didn't answer your question, but.
Well, that's great. Hey, thanks, Linda.
Okay. Can I take this one more?
Well, you mentioned networking strategically. What do you think the best way to get yourself in situations where you can find the people you need to connect with?
The best way to do that is actually, if you're in a specific industry, search for people who have been successful in that industry to try to get them on your team and compensate them appropriately with equity in your company. Team is number one. To get the best team is number one. And then also to work strategically is actually prepare and plan. I see a lot of people not do business plans. A lot of people disagree that business plans aren't in anymore, but I'll tell you what, business planning is in. So there are a lot of free resources in Utah, a lot of free workshops, and your networks can help you too, but hire a good team. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Linda. Hope you feel better. Well, to introduce our next speaker, I got to take off my tie, and we got to get a little different entrepreneur vibe in here. I apologize for the stuffiness of this tie. But our next presenter is Chad Cannon. He wanted me to introduce him initially as a 6'1", washed-up, has-been baseball player. But to tell you the truth, this guy is amazing. He's taught me all I know about PPC. So welcome Chad Cannon up here to teach us a little about PPC in the weeds.
Well, I think Jared's lying when he said those two things about me. One, I'm not 6'1", and two, I'm not washed up. So, how many of you are currently entrepreneurs? How many are aspiring entrepreneurs? How many of you have ever used Google's paid search? How many think they will need to use Google's paid search, or Bing, or Yahoo? Well, good. That's a good majority. My fear was that 2 hands would go up and this wouldn't be that relevant. But it seems like a lot of you may run into it. So much of business today takes place online, and one of the quickest and most effective ways to get people to your site is through paid search. I've been doing paid search for the last about 6 years. I've worked with accounts that have, monthly budgets of $100, and I've worked with accounts that have monthly budgets, unlimited monthly budgets where I'm spending, $200,000 plus a month. So I've seen a lot. I wanted to cram those last 6 years into the 7 minutes that Jared has given me. That's pretty tough. So I thought I would start with what I think is the most important thing that you could probably learn when getting started. Also, the thing that I see the most problems with. So a lot of people will come and ask, will you just take a look in my account? Here's my login, here are my credentials. Get in there, tell me what's right, tell me what's wrong. So people also think that the key is keywords and ad copy, and I don't necessarily agree. That's not the hard part. The hard part is structuring your campaign. If I can work this. Maybe. I can click through. What I think the most important thing to paid search is your campaign organization and strategy. The success of your PPC campaigns hinges on your ability to find out what is and isn't working, continue with what is, get rid of what isn't. But if you have not organized your account, campaigns, ad groups in a way that is easy to read and find out what is and isn't working, you're going to fail. You're just going to have a big spider web spaghetti bowl of a mess. So my opinion is garbage in, garbage out. If you don't put it in right, it's going to come out wrong, and you won't be able to determine what's working and driving your business. Rule number 2, before you start, you have to know what your CPA is. And CPA is your cost per action. That could be an acquisition, that could be a sale, it could be a lead, it could be a conversion to download your latest ebook or PDF. You need to know what your target cost per action is. And in order to do that, Google literally gives you the tool. Here's an example of conversions. You can turn on your conversion optimizer or your conversion tracker, which will tell you literally how many conversions have taken place on your site. Use it. Google wants you to succeed. If you don't, they don't. They want to succeed very badly, and so they need you to succeed. They've provided you with tools that will help. So you must turn on your conversion tracker. You can see it highlighted there. And it will also determine and tell you what your cost per conversion or your cost per action is. But if you go in without knowing what your target is, and you just try to throw it against the wall and see what it turns out to be, you won't last very long. So go in with a plan. The next thing I would say is you have to know your networks in Google. Google has their search, which is google.com. They have their search partners, which is like ask.com and other second, third tier search engines that their results may be powered by Google. And then they have what's called their display network. Anyone in here have a blog? Anybody try and make money off of it by running Google AdSense? You can run Google's ads on your blog. The ads should be specific to what's on your blog, relevant to the content. That's called their display network. People aren't literally searching for your ad, but they may stumble across it due to relevant content. As you can imagine, with the explosion of blogs and the amount of content that's on the web, the display network is enormous. My opinion is you have to separate your search campaigns from your display campaigns. They behave very, very differently. They cost their costs are wildly different as well. So here's an example of what it would look like in your settings. And notice up at the top, Google's advice to you is just turn it all on. That's what we recommend for new advertisers. Just turn it on, crank it up, and let us go crazy. You'll burn through some cash fast. And as entrepreneurs, we're not loaded with capital, are we? We are on tight budgets. The ROI has to come very quickly. There's not a lot of room for error. I'm telling you, do not enable everything and let it run wild. Be very deliberate in how you run things. What I mean by that is here's an example of what to avoid. Let's say you've got a campaign number 1, and you've got a daily budget of $150. And you've turned on everything. You've done what was recommended for new advertisers. At the end of the day, you look and you go, well, my search networks only got $25. My display network spent $125 of my budget. You can't control that because your campaign is controlled at your spending is controlled at the campaign level. When you have them mixed together in a mess, one's going to take over the other, and that may not be the one you want to be taking over. A better example is to run 2 campaigns. They can be identical. One is campaign 1, the other is campaign 1. One is on the search networks, SER. The other one is on the display networks. They can be identical. But let's say you have a better ROI on search. Focus your budget on search. So avoid what they recommend to new advertisers. Take control of your campaign. Garbage in, garbage out. The next thing is that the display network that we talked about, it's not keyword based. People think that Google's all about search and specific keywords. The display network is actually theme based, and you need to think thematically. You need to group your ad groups, your groups of keywords within an ad group very, very specifically and tightly. Here's an example of an industry I used to work in, auto warranty leads. The campaign, again, I've identified it as the display network. I've got Ford, Chevys, Hondas, and Toyotas. Those are my groups. Within that group, all those keywords you can see for Ford are very specific to Ford. Think thematically, tighten it up. It's all based on your ad group. The other thing, because as I mentioned, campaign, your daily budgets are controlled at the campaign level. Don't let generic keywords or long-tail keywords steal from your trademarks. Trademarks typically perform very, very well, have a fantastic ROI, but if they're grouped together in this bad example, again, your daily budget's $150, trademarks may only get $10 because your other campaigns have burned through your budget and the ROI may not be there. What I would recommend is putting your trademarks in its own campaign, putting your generics in a different campaign. Because if you're getting a better ROI on your trademarks, maximize that. Don't let things that don't perform steal from what is performing. So set it up in a way that allows you to optimize and maximize your return. If you throw it all together in one big spaghetti bowl, you're going to get a mess over which you probably don't have a lot of control. So garbage in, garbage out. That's all I got.
Awesome. Let's open up the questions to chat.
So I'm fairly new, like I've talked about it in classes, but I'm fairly new to it. Is trademark saying your company name when you're trying to focus on?
Yes. Yeah, your trademark. So maybe some of you have heard of Blue House skis. That's Blue House needs its own campaign where the return on that investment is very good compared to factory skis, cheap skis, very broad generic terms. They're more expensive. They don't convert as well as opposed to someone where there's not a lot of competition on the name Blue House skis, but also they already know the product. They've searched on the name. So give that every opportunity it can have and allow the others, dial those in.
So is display literally an ad next to it, or it pops up and someone searches for that?
It would be right next to it. So if you've ever used Gmail, you're reading your email and then there's those ads over on the side. Those are display network type of ads. Based on the content in your email, Google tries to serve up relevant advertisements. So it doesn't pop up in your way. They're just there. It happens on MSN, CNBC. You'll see advertisements everywhere you go now, and those are most likely being powered by Google. That's a really good question. My general rule of thumb is once you're upside down 2 times, so let's say you're waiting and hoping that conversion comes in. Let's say your target cost per acquisition or conversion is $50. If you get to 100 and all of a sudden a conversion comes in, you're still an entire sale upside down. That's a general rule for me. And it's not a dollar amount, it's more proportionate to your target cost per acquisition.
Where do you recommend somebody to learn about all this? It seems like it changes. I mean, I did some deep research into it like 2 years ago, and it's completely changed now. So is there like an authoritative source or some place to really learn?
Hire me. Google AdWords has a blog, and they power their own blog, and it's really pretty good. It's obviously search friendly, so if you have specific questions, you can dig around their blog. It is ever changing, and the Google AdWords help section is another great resource and tool for you.
One thing just for anyone who's going to start doing it, I always try and find Google have lots of free $75 credits. So if you're starting out, I recommend trying to find a code. I got tons of revenue off free advertising for the first $7,500. Also, one thing, when you do sign up, Google will give you a free call. So one of their specialists, you can call them and talk to them, and they'll tell you good things about your campaign, bad things, and they'll help you through it. So that's really helpful, and it's all completely free.
It is very helpful. The $75 is only for a new account. So if you have an existing account and you want to open a new campaign that you're going to test with, that campaign within the account, you cannot apply the $75 to it. It has to be for a brand new account, but that may be just fine for a lot of you.
I know in your example there you were saying $150 a day, $4,500 or so a month. What do you think is sort of the bottom floor investment that's worthwhile if you're going to do this? Is that a ballpark number that you'd say, oh, that's a good average number, that's a way low number, that's a high number, you know?
It all depends on your business. Your target acquisition cost, your target CPA may only be $1. At which point $150 could be a lot of units. I've worked in industries where every click, just to get the click, can cost over $50. So that only gets you 3 clicks a day. That's nothing. It's not going to go anywhere. What I will say is I didn't start getting calls from Google. I had to call and harass them for help until I started spending $75,000 a month. That's when they started to call me. So I don't know if that helps. The thing.
Small businesses, startups, people are trying to use this.
Google.
Where do you get in? Because I know in my experience in the past, for the business I'm in, the conversions weren't worth it. You know, it never really panned out. It was money that just kind of went down the drain.
Yeah, that's why you've got to, when you hit go, when you hit play, you have got to be set up and optimized in a way that will tell you whether you're succeeding immediately or not. If you don't have your conversion trackers in place, you're going to be guessing. Or you better have a great database on the back end that you're going to be able to match up with your keywords that you're pulling out of Google's system. So use the tools they give you. They want you to succeed. Be smart up front.
Cool. Hey, well, thanks, Chad. Really appreciate you coming. So our next company, well, I guess our first company tonight, when we ask companies to come and present, we ask them a few lessons that they would share with us about entrepreneurship. And from Mobonics, they share the following. 1, don't quit your day job. No, seriously, entrepreneurship takes a lot longer than you think, so wait until you absolutely have to leave. You need that money. 2, partnership is like marriage, so make sure you know who you're getting into bed with. They could be a serious snorer or totally hog the sheets. And 3, a bird in the hand is better than 2 in the bush. But what's even better is a bird in the hand that lays a golden egg and gets all the bird friends to come over too. Find partners that can bring you business. So with that, let me introduce Jenny Clausen, who's going to present on Mobonics. How about a round of applause for her? Get her comfortable here.
All right. So actually, my partner, Scott Lemon, raise your hand, and I met at a LaunchUp lunch. And we came up with this, well, we didn't come up with this, but we formed this relationship from that. So come to these things. Okay, so Mobonics. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we are. First of all, there's lots of situations, whether you're in a restaurant or maybe at a ski resort, a local ski resort, or even at LaunchUp. Do you see your picture right here? Can you guys see? I took this picture just now. Just kidding. You're all enjoying this, I can tell. But where you actually, as a business owner or an event manager, have no way of really understanding what your customer or the person is experiencing. And you have no way of really reaching out to them again in the future unless you do like email campaigns. But how many of you guys, raise your hand if you're sick of it getting email blasts? Come on, there's only like 3. I'm so sick of this. Okay, so I think the 2 problems that we're facing here is how can you get real-time feedback from your customer, and how can you then interact with them after they've left the store, the restaurant, the business, whatever it is, the event. And so this is where we created Mobonics. Now, there's something out there that I'm sure you guys have experienced already, where if you go to a restaurant and you order something, they'll give you a receipt, and on the receipt you'll see something like this. It says, call this number or go to this website and enter this store number for a brief survey, and then you have to write down this little number, and then you take it back the next month, if you remember, and you get a sugar cookie. Have any of you guys ever redeemed these? Oh my gosh, shameless, I'm just kidding. No, I know, but actually we talked to several businesses, and their redemption rate on this is less than 1%. So the feedback is just terrible, and it's not real time, and there's no way they can go back and have a conversation with this customer if they had a bad experience. So this is why we created Mobonics. I'm going to show you a little bit about how this works, so hold on. Okay, so I just logged in here. If I was a restaurant or an event, let's say I'm an event called LaunchUp, I can come in here and I can create a survey. If I click on that button, survey, all these different options come up for me to create it. So I can change the name of the survey. It can work for a restaurant, for any kind of store. But for an event, I say, okay, here's a list of questions that are pre-selected. I can go in here, I can select, okay, how satisfied are you with the event? How satisfied are you with the speaker right now? Woo! Okay, all right. I'm like, this is a rough crowd. And then you can go to presentations. You could even go to the facilities. And how easy was it to find? How good was the signage? What was the quality of your service? So after I click on the ones that I want, I come over here and I click on what reward I want. And so I'm going to do this right here. I can type in, for SMS, any kind of reward I want. And, okay. So once I create that reward, then I can go here to my options, and I can say allow forwarding or for a limited time. And what's so great about that is then you can have them share it with their friends. It can become really viral. You can draw business in. And then what I do, okay, so I set this up. And it's all ready to go. I can put what days I want it to run, the rewards and things like that. So let me go back now to... All right, so what happens is when you then go to the event or the restaurant, they will display a sign somewhere, like I've put over here on this fence. Text survey to this number. So people, while they're waiting in line, they've got their cell phones with them, they text survey to that number, and this is what they get. If it's a smartphone, or a regular feature phone, you'll get this text that comes to you, which enables you to either text back your survey if you're a feature phone, or you can click on that link right there and you can go to a mobile web browser. So this is what it looks like if it's a mobile. You get to rate with stars. And then this is what the reward would look like. It has a distinct number that comes to you, that 000066. Can only be used the one time. Once it goes into the cash register, it's not valid anymore. So you can have a unique identifier. So really, this is solving two problems. So how can we get real-time feedback? That's with our basic plan. Basic plan just does SMS and mobile web browser surveys. But if you do the premium plan, we can also do the outbound marketing. And let me show you what that looks like real quick. So if you look right here, I'm a premium member. Here's text marketing. I can actually create outbound marketing that I want to do. So for example, I'm a restaurant and it's a special for today and I want to send this out to everyone who's in my system. I create this here. I can add another one here, put in whatever I want. Then I get to put in what days I want it to run. And I can also just delete it. So it allows me to send out messages to all those people that are, as soon as you take a survey, you're automatically opted into this. You can opt out at any time. So we talked about that, okay. So where we are right now, the technology is up and running, and there's just one little tiny bug we'll talk about, but everything works really well. In fact, we took this to the Twilio conference, which is a conference out in Silicon Valley, and won. Woo! And so we were funded by 500 Twilio startups, which if you guys are familiar with Dave McClure out in Silicon Valley, it's a huge deal. We got funded by them. And so this is great. But what we need is we need some more help. Basically, we are just ready to just sell this thing. So if you have any contacts that you could maybe help us out with, restaurants, stores, ski resorts, events that you know of, we would love to just chat with you and see how we could partner on this. And so now we're going to test it out. Everyone pull out your phone right now and text survey to this number. If you are using the mobile browser and it says your phone number, it populates your phone number in there, just check it because the last number is 2 digits off. So just make sure that. But go ahead and text survey. Take the survey. I've got a treat for everyone who takes it. Just come up to me afterwards, and I'll give you your prize if you show me your reward. So that's it. Any questions?
We got 7 minutes for questions, so ask your question, Riller.
Yeah. I don't. I need to, yeah. Yes. What kind of funding did we need? We didn't need any. We were so wealthy. Daddy Warbucks.
But we picked up the funding from 500 startups to help us now go on it.
Yeah.
You guys looking for other sources of money, like a round A, a round B, a venture capital, angel investment, keep it going?
You know, right now I don't think that we're specific. I mean, we'll talk for sure. We're not going to turn money down necessarily, but I don't know. Right now we just need to sell the thing, so we're pretty good. The development's done, but yeah.
How much market research did you do before developing?
Well, that's more a question that you would speak to.
So the original, one of the other partners of the company and I started talking about it. He had gone out and actually taken a couple of weeks to spend some time with some restaurants. That was his original target market. And so once he talked to them and looked at the programs and the way they were doing things, that's when he came back and felt there was enough of a market to pursue it. Didn't spend a huge amount of time, but we've had a couple of people now, just started to beta test and use it and experiment with it. Jenny's gotten us into a couple of larger chains that are now, we've been kind of surprised at the feedback they've given, and they're very interested in it.
Yeah, so we're still tweaking it obviously as we go, but yeah.
Have you talked to like Mindshare Technologies? I don't know if
Yeah.
you're familiar with them, but like this is this kind of stuff that I think they would want, or are you guys a competitor?
We're a competitor.
Okay.
But good point, yeah. We might want to, yeah, there might be some partnership down the road for sure, yeah. There's so many, yeah.
What's the back end? You're gathering all this data. What does the user get? I mean, the business get?
Oh, I didn't show you that. I'm so sorry. That's right. That's what I meant to do. Okay. So if I come here and I've created the survey, I come to my dashboard and it shows me, for example, okay, I've had 24 surveys taken. In the last 24 hours, 13. And then, and I can refresh that, how many customers. Then it shows here all the people who took the survey. Look at this. This is just barely, you guys just did this. And okay, so this shows you how the survey went, what the scores were, the overall rating. But then it also, over here, is really great because if you have a red, which automatically you can have notification come to you when surveys drop below a certain level. And if there's a certain negative comment, you can have it alert you. And then you can come here and you can say, send message to that person. So they can actually say, hey, I'm the store owner. I understand you had a bad experience here. Call me at this number, and we'll take care of that. So it allows you to get that feedback. There's also these charts here that show you how people answer. And there's different periods and weeks. You can do different ranges. Here shows you this survey that we just sent out. We have got 18 people who took it. Come on, the rest of you guys. I know you got your cell phones. You want that treat. Anyway, okay. Oh, shoot. Okay, 801-701-2090. I know, where is it? Sorry, there you go. Any other questions? Yeah.
So for I've done tech stuff for almost a decade now, and I have to say that of all the people that I've ever used as a gateway, I don't currently have any reason to move away from them. If we reach a certain volume, I've talked to like bandwidth.com and a couple of people who are saying that they can start to get fractional pennies per text. But I mean, Twilio has just continued to dive the price below, what I had with like open market and a lot of the bigger guys. So, I've been real happy with them. We get the voice and the text. You can still get short codes, so we have the ability, if a client really wants to do short code, we can still do that through them. And the API just is a dream. I mean, it's just so easy to do things with what they build.
Cool, thanks.
As a user, how would you introduce this to your customers if it's not a situation where they're in line or waiting? I mean, if it's like a product that you're selling or you want another experience, something like that, how do you suggest that we get them to take the survey?
So it could come in an email, if you have their email. I think you could, if you have it on your business card, if you have it actually on the product, hey, I would love your feedback. What is that? I mean, it could be on so many different marketing materials. So you could tattoo it, every time you come by, you're just like, just kidding, I don't know.
Browser-based ones, we're also about to offer the ability to print QR Microsoft tag, so that you'd be able to put those on your product also.
Yeah, so they could just scan it and go straight to this. So, great. Any other questions? One back here, yeah.
What consumer problem do you solve?
The consumer problem is if you're having a bad experience. The guy that was sitting there waiting for a table, I mean, he had 2 girls with him, so I wouldn't have served him either. But he, obviously wants to give his feedback. I think, too, as a consumer, you're automatically opted in. A lot of people want to find out the promotions that are happening in businesses, and so this is a great way for them to get continuous promotions to them if they do want deals. Price wars? Because people will only go if it's on sale. Yeah, well, you don't necessarily have to discount things for your promotion. It could just be like, hey, it's Shrimp Tuesday, Taco Tuesday, whatever. Or, I don't know, it's, I don't know. I'm thinking all these Mexican restaurants, I don't know. Yeah.
How long did it take to build your code? I assume that you were probably the developer.
Yeah, I've actually got a team of developers, and we've iterated it now for about 6 months. So, I'd say from the original conversations, it's probably been around 8, but we built a basic prototype, got it into restaurants within a couple of months, and then have continued to enhance the platform and add other features and things to it. And we're continuing to enhance it, almost weekly or every other week. We're still adding some other features.
Can you give a ballpark as to like what your investment has been in developing? Or I mean,
Probably not.
It's kind of a tough one because I have a development team and then I have a development team offshore in the Philippines. So I've got about a dozen developers and I just use them when they have free time. So I've used it to both train them and then to have them work on it. So it hasn't been a huge, outlay of cash because I had the human capital that's already on the payroll.
$1 million is what it's worth, just in case you're wondering. $1 million.
We do have the $1 million valuation.
I'm totally
as a
kidding.
Liqueur, but
Okay. Anything else? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a global sales manager for Company X. I give my sales people 15% commission. Are you guys having any kind of sales team like that going out there, getting companies to buy into this right now? Or
That's probably the plan, for sure.
That's future?
Yeah. Right now, it's me and Scott.
We have built into the pricing model a way to look at leveraging other teams.
Yeah.
So if people are interested in even doing that,
commission.
we'd love to do it on a commission basis. Cool.
Yeah. Anything else?
Okay.
No? Okay, thanks so much.
All right. Hey, well, thanks. Great job, Mobonics. Exciting technology. But next we got Brainiacs. Brainiacs will invite Matt Hoffman up here. I want him to be up here while I talk about his advice. Matt, if you guys don't know Matt, you should know Matt. Matt's a really smart guy, and he knows it. So here are his lessons, his really fabulous lessons. I nor anyone else in the space knows what they're talking about, so follow your own judgment and be skeptical advice from experts. Nobody knows what they're talking about. It's never as good as it seems when going very well, and it's never as bad as it seems when it's going poorly. Learn to emotionally regulate. And third, if any of the following conditions apply to you, you're on the wrong track. A, you're the smartest guy in the room while working on your project. B, you own all the equity. And C, your first reaction to offers of interest or help involves an NDA, descriptions of involving stealth mode, or general distrust of others. And he actually gave a fourth bonus hint, which is no one is trying to steal your idea. Stop taking yourself so seriously and just build something useful. So with that, here's Matt and Brainiacs.
Don't steal my idea after this. Serious. So how many of you know what convertible debt is? This is a bunch of entrepreneurs, right? It's actually sort of a confusing thing if you've tried to figure it out. How many of you guys, when you learned about it, did you go online to try to find out what it was? Most? You're not even a plant. Is that true, really? So this is this is essentially that idea on steroids. What my complaint has been with learning complex concepts in the past is I'm actually a relatively lazy person with a short attention span. So I'll go do about 2 Google searches and I'll click on 2 different links and I'll be like, this sucks, I don't understand this. I have to read this too long. Or I'll read about 20 sentences and then read 3 other words that I also don't understand, and then I'll click on I'll do some other search and I'll have 5 web pages open, and then I'll get bored and then I'll call my friend who's an attorney and ask him the question. So I always end up asking human beings, or a lot of times. The more complex it gets, the more human intervention I often require to explain something to me. So I'll play you guys this little video about what Brainiacs is. And my goal for talking about this thing is not necessarily to do a commercial for this business, because it isn't a functioning business right now. What I'm more curious about is you guys telling me why this will suck, what's wrong with it, or what you think is cool about it and interesting about it. Because there's about 1,000 things we could do with it to make money, and we haven't figured that part out yet. And that's, to me, this isn't my first rodeo in terms of working on a company or an idea. And to me, that's almost the most interesting, engaging part intellectually. So this is the way we explain our website.
Brainiacs.com, a place to teach and learn.
That is some crap. Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
How do you quickly learn a complex concept? Learning from the internet can be a big task with lots of open windows and tabs. Browsing can be time-consuming, often finding terrible websites that are not what you need. Instead, you call a friend or you ask a coworker who is an expert, but sometimes experts are not available or are annoyed with your questions. That's where Brainiacs.com comes in, a crowdsourced learning website where users can be teachers or students. You can participate in two ways. Either create a video about something you know and upload it, or search for a subject and start learning. Brainiacs.com, a place to teach and learn.
So that's what we're building. We're essentially building a crowdsourced learning website where people can teach each other stuff. It's no more complex than that. I'll show you guys the site as it is right now, and we'll poke around. I'll explain a little bit more. There's a little bit more to it than that involves sharing and organizing ideas. And the reason is that when I've tried to learn something complex in the past, say I asked you about convertible debt. Convertible debt actually involves 8 or 10 different ideas that need their own explanation. If you don't know what a cap is in a convertible debt note, if you don't know what an interest rate is, or if you don't know, there's a whole bunch of other terms, right? So complex things really involve more than just one quick explanation. So we thought a lot about how to link explanations of things together. So what do you guys want to search on right now to learn about? Okay, sales. We'll do sales. That's a great idea. So when we search on a subject here, I only do this because we have lots of videos loaded in the system about this subject. What you'll see is that returns both what we call elements and curriculums. We've sort of had to invent a language for this. Elements are pieces of video or text content like sales cycle. And I'll let this play for a second. I'm going to mute it. Okay, we're going to discuss... There we go. So while I'm talking through what a sales cycle is here, I'm using a whole bunch of other terms that are pertinent to understanding sales cycle itself. And so I'm going to say things like market research, through prospecting, showing your product, marching through the process of getting a customer to buy the product, then closing the customer. So you guys can sort of see what's happening at the top of the screen. The idea here is something that we call bonding. So we've taken a video explaining a concept, and when the algorithm recognizes another concept, it immediately creates a link between those two things, assuming that the student might need to understand that link, and then pops up an associated video with one of those concepts. So the idea here would be, if you don't know what prospecting is, you'd click on prospecting, you get a whole new video about prospecting. Does that make sense? So we're linking these things together. It's pretty easy when you have human beings doing this. You can listen to speech patterns and things. It gets really difficult when you try to write a coding algorithm to both strip out language and then identify word associations and then make connections between ideas and try to decide which connections are pertinent and which are not. So that's actually the big technical challenge of what we're doing. But the idea is that any video here is bonded to other videos both in what we call a subordinate way, meaning I need to understand what this means in order to understand prospecting, and in a superordinate way, more complex ideas. So I can't understand what a convertible debt note is unless I understand what a cap is. And so, if I'm talking about sales cycle, there's 8 or 10 other individual ideas that happen during that discussion. So that's the whole idea, is to make a resource on the internet. And of course, I actually built about 150 videos in conjunction with another program that I work with at the University of Utah of just the stuff that I know moderately well. And it traces my career. It's a lot of sales and finance and venture capital, stuff like that. But we've also sent some students out to go out into the ecosystem and get videos from experts. So there's actually some attorneys here that have helped us build videos about patents and other things. So we're starting the process of assembling this library, and eventually when the website is at a place where it can handle the traffic, we will open it up. It's open right now. You guys can go bang around and use it, but there's a lot of buttons that don't work, and it's in the middle of being developed. But certainly we're going to open it up and let other people start to put information into it. So we've got a little bit of an ambition around something that we call curriculums. So as we started to think about this process, I started to pay attention to what kind of questions people would ask me and how I would go about answering those questions, and then vice versa, the things that I didn't understand. So a couple of the students that I worked with at the U knew that I did a lot of selling in my career and said, hey, Matt, I got to set up a sales structure for my company. How do I do that? And in order for me to answer that question, I couldn't just grab a single video. So we started coming up with this concept of curriculums. So instead, what I would do is I'd go back through my video library and grab a whole bunch of different videos and put them together. So we started, sales process intro and cycle and pipeline and collateral and objections. And I would put all that stuff in a package and send them a link. And the software actually allows you to walk through those videos in whatever order you decide. The beauty of that is I don't know what they don't know. So if they're watching one of these videos and seeing some other word or phrase that they don't understand, they can easily travel out of what they're learning into that other concept and then come back. So the idea was, hey, wouldn't it be useful and interesting if people could assemble a bunch of these videos? So the use case is, and this has happened to me a number of times, I call Jared and I go, hey man, I'm forming a company. What type of corporation should this be? So instead of me paying Jared, however many hundreds of dollars he makes an hour to explain C Corp, S Corp, LLC, wouldn't it be cool if Jared just went into his own library of videos and said, C Corp, S Corp, LLC partnership, here you go, and emailed me a link. And I could watch those videos and then call him back and say, I think I should be an LLC for this reason, and then he could give me legal advice. So there's an application in service providers, there's an application in education, there's an application inside a corporation. So how many times, all of you guys, I'll bet you a lot of people in here have taken a job and you show up at work and people are like, who are you? And the first 3 weeks, nobody hardly trains you at all. If you have a crappy company like most of the companies I've worked at. The good companies will have some training program they'll put you in, but most of the time you're sort of on your own. So wouldn't it be awesome if you had this library of videos that people at your company had built, either screen captures of your software, someone saying, here's how you do the HR program. There's a whole industry out there and use case for that. We think it would be more dynamic and interesting to use bonding and curriculums in order to solve these problems. And then we came up with this other idea of groups, which is there's elements of social networking here where, I work with a group called The Foundry and they ask me the same questions over and over and over again. And so it's great to have a group full of people that have what's called a queue so that someone can ask me a question and I can assemble a bunch of videos about sales and then send that link to the group and it shows up in sort of like an email inbox. It shows up in their queue. Oh, hey, you guys should read this. So let's say you have a group of buddies that like to go skiing, you can trade information about that. You have a group of people that you work with, you can trade information appropriate to that. That's the idea behind groups and the queue. So we've started testing this in classrooms. We have some companies that are starting to mess around with it. And we're still in the phase of figuring out how efficacious this is to link videos and text this way. So that's sort of the function of the software. And at this point, it's really no more complex than that. We're just starting the process of assembling the library and watching how people interact with the information. I may not have hit my 7 minutes, but I'll stop here. Question?
On your pricing, is it going to be you pay to log in, or are you going to do it as like an advertising? Like how do you actually, what's your revenue stream?
You sound like an investor. I have screwed around in the startup world enough to know that you're basically making an educated guess at this point in the evolution. And my educated guess is that corporations will pay for this, especially for privacy. And if you think about the information that's generated inside of a company, a lot of it is public and they're glad to have other people view it, and a lot of it isn't, but they still want to sort of cordon off who can see it and who can't. So they'll pay for the ability to control data. Yeah, and it can be even down to, I think this is actually really attractive for small businesses because it's a hosted environment. Well, one important thing I forgot to explain is that you can use and steal other people's content. And you can also poach content off things like YouTube. So we have a tool in there when you're creating what we call an element. You can go in and grab someone else's YouTube video and title it and call it whatever you'd like and stick it in the library. So often when you're assembling a curriculum, it's not your stuff. So, if I wanted to do one on avalanches, I'd go grab Bruce Tremper's videos from the Utah Avalanche Service, put those in a curriculum and share them with someone else. So, and that's an important thing I forgot to mention.
limit it to video?
No. In fact, right now you can, if I go search on sales and click on one of these here, let's see if the text is written here. Yeah, so here, I've also written textual descriptions for a lot of these. Yeah.
Video games, other ways people learn outside of reading and videos. It seems like that's another.
Yeah, I mean, we could go there. There's a whole gaming theory, sort of gaming architecture discussion around this that we've talked about, but I know enough about developing software that there's sort of the sequential process that you go through of introducing those new dynamics, and I'm not close to gaming yet.
I really like how you have you can organize it in the groups, and I can't remember what they're called, the curriculums and things like that. I think that's really good, and I think that will be easy to develop into something that can profit. One thing I was going to ask you about was, I'm familiar with lynda.com, which does some really good tutorials. I use it. And then there's also another one, I can't remember what it is, but it's I think a guy from the Middle East or something.
Khan Academy.
That's exactly what it is. So I was just curious, what you had to say about that, because I'm not too familiar with it, but from what it seems like, that's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, very, very. In fact, that's a big part of the inspiration for this. So a company that I helped start before this called Swarm Builder, it used to be called 3.5. We did a lot of corporate training and used a lot of animated Flash content. And so I got to watch 400,000 users interact with the software and A/B test what they will and won't learn and absorb. And so there's these really defined limits to how people behave. Anything over about 8 minutes, people just won't even pay attention. But you can get people to pay attention for 24 minutes, but you have to break it up into 3 8-minute pieces and make them move their mouse around and interact with the website. So I was learning for the last 4 or 5 years how people digest content, and then I went into the classrooms at the U and started to watch how students jumped from concept to concept, that a professor would say something and they'd search on Wikipedia for one of the words that the professor used. The professor didn't even know that the students didn't know that word. So I watched that going on. I knew, everyone's moving to video and people are really impatient, and so am I, and I won't even watch an 8-minute video. It's really more like 4. And you can take something like SEO, really complex, and explain it in 4 minutes. Meanwhile, Khan comes out with Khan Academy and just totally proves that theory. He's like, people want content in small, digestible chunks that are appropriately connected to one another. And the feedback you get about video is pretty crazy. People are like, I can stop it, I can rewind it, I can watch it over and over. People used to call our company and say, I have a learning disability, I didn't like to do this in front of other people, I like to do it at home at my own speed. All this stuff you don't really think about in the learning process. And Khan just proved all that stuff and got money from the Gates Foundation and from Google. And he's going in a real different direction. He's trying to do, K through 12 education and change the way that kids learn, and it's a .org. So it's kind of a different thing, but absolutely a huge inspiration.
To make sure it's legitimate.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. In here we have we're creating a marketplace for teachers, and I don't really have time to get into this really deeply, but if you don't like me, you should be able to swap me for another teacher. So there's teaching styles, right? So if there's 20 videos about convertible debt and you don't like me explaining it, you should just say, swap, I want another teacher doing convertible debt. And then you can also rank or rate a teacher. You can come in and say, I think this teacher is really good at clarity, accuracy, or delivery style, so that teachers will build up rankings. We all know there are good teachers and crappy teachers. And so we have to facilitate that sort of marketplace for good teachers. That what I'm hoping is it's a lot like a YouTube ranking, that you start building up either people who subscribe to you or who rank you really highly, so that when you go into the search engine and search for sales and you get sales cycle, in the future when there's 40 of those things, you can say, that teacher's really highly ranked. And then you can have favorites, right? You could say, anytime, search for MIT first, search for Matt Hoffman second. If I can't find any of those, then give me the rest. You know what I mean? That's when you can start to apply filtering and things. There isn't one. Other than it's pretty cool to try and help people and teach people. And I also believe that we're an insanely narcissistic society, and everybody loves sort of telling other people how to do things. So.
I have an idea based on kind of some of those questions, but what if you charge, and that's what was my question too, is how do you make sure the content's really good quality? And you were talking about your lawyer friend, and instead of asking him for advice and him getting aggravated because he's not charging you $150 an hour, what if your lawyer friend made a bunch of videos, and when people asked him questions, he just charged, each video was like 99 cents or
So,
a nominal fee, and he would just...
I think that's an interesting idea. The only problem that I've seen with that is pay for content situations almost never work on the internet. And there's no reason why we can't make this free. And there are plenty of people who are smart attorneys who will explain that and post it for free. In fact, the service organizations we've talked to, recruiters, attorneys, folks like that, they've been like, oh, this is the best marketing tool I could possibly think of. And they start the video saying, I'm so-and-so from so-and-so partners, right? And I'm going to teach you X, Y, Z. And they're like, we're going to put this all over our blog and all over our website, and we think people will think that we're smart and we'll get referrals. And then I talked to a attorney actually at your firm who was like, oh yeah, I already do this on my blog, you know. It's how I do half my lead gen type of thing, where I have this awesome blog where I get half my lead gen, right? So it's sort of a marketing tool as well for those companies.
What's going to filter out the bad stuff? Like, let's say I looked up evolution and I get a right-wing Christian who doesn't believe in it, and then I get a left-wing Darwinist who believes in it, so I have two conflicting.
You know,
the same content.
I don't have a good answer for that. I don't know. I think the internet's a pretty democratic place, and that there's you already have that problem in general, but B, we'll be able to set up and imitate content control mechanisms. There's a bunch of websites out there that already have that problem. That I don't know that much about how they do it, but almost everything we're doing here is already being done better by somebody else. We're just putting a bunch of stuff together. So we've stolen all kinds of great ideas from other. I mean, this looks exactly like Dropbox. You know, maybe you've seen that website. So we steal things all the time. So.
Breadcrumb trail that then when I'm done or I cancel out of it, I'm returned right to where I was in the previous thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Pretty easy to keep me on track.
The answer to that is a resource. As a technical guy, you know that the ultimate goal is absolutely. It's easy to get you back to the exact point you were in the video. Well, I have very grand designs about watching pathways through subjects because, for example, if I'm teaching sales and I notice that 80% of my students are moving into these 3 other subjects, I'm like, oh, I better be teaching those subjects, right? So there's all kinds of analysis you can do about who's moving where, when, and in what direction that I think will be super interesting.
Right now, what if I'm looking for a video right now and I can't find it? I think on this particular topic, if I can request a video or something.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's in our product plan where already people have been like, how do I request that someone build a video about something, right? Yeah, that's an awesome idea. Yeah, we sort of messed around and presented this to some seed fund people and angel people in New York City, and all of them had the exact same reaction. They're like, if you can figure out bonding, that alone will be by far your most valuable thing. And I was like, oh, thank you. Can you guys help us? Because it's super hard. So it turns out it's really, really difficult. And I have 3 super smart people who are much smarter than I am who have thought a lot about this. And essentially, without giving away our strategy or whatever, we're basically working on voice recognition to strip out the words. And then you end up parsing words and throwing away tenses and common words. You take all the most common words in the language and throw them out. And then you see what you're left with, and you see if there are word associations. And then you can use you're basically creating a data set of words being used in these videos, and then you can start comparing those data sets against one another, and you can find taxonomical location. So if you start saying, share, price, strike, option, you start to know that you can immediately say it's in finance, right? So that we're still working on how to do that. And to be honest with you, one of the hardest parts is the voice recognition. Because if you don't speak into a microphone in these videos, the current voice recognition doesn't do real well. If you have an accent, it doesn't do real well. We're bumping into all kinds of issues there. there's ways to speed it up. Like we have a bonding machine now that you can watch a video and bond it really quickly as a human. But you're right, we're still forced to have human beings do it. And there's a big debate about whether do you let the user do it or do we control it? Because one of the reasons I think YouTube sucks and is totally worthless for finding stuff like this is that people game the search mechanisms in YouTube by changing tags and things. You know, they go put Lindsay Lohan or Justin Bieber on their commercial for their company, and then you go, and it just messes up the search function. So I'm trying to take as much of that out of the user's hands in this case, because the other argument is we only need 20 versions of any video to find something that's going to make people happy. So we don't have to be like YouTube and store every video in the whole program. We should be able to limit it to how many versions of some thing that we have, unless maybe you pay me, right? There's another paywall. If you say, oh, I'll pay you $5 a month to store all these other videos that I'm going to use personally. So we're struggling with bonding. We're struggling with how they, whether people bond or not. But yes, the idea is you push that as far toward automated as you can. Even if I just suggested a list of bonds to you and you said yes, 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 no, 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 that's sort of this incremental move in that direction.
Have you thought about having them do it written as well as the video to cancel out the voice recognition?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier, that you can put in text, but do you mean something different? Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That's maybe something interesting. Yeah, you cut me off.
Okay, you're out.
I thought you were going to cut me off.
I was meaning to cut you off, and Ryan got on me. If Jeremy were here, he would be all over me for letting people go way too long. We totally have a clock, and I'm sorry. So, hey, let's give it up for Brainiacs. Really interesting stuff here. All right, our last presenter of the night. Our food is here. Usually it's here. Sometimes it's not as hot. It's good. We've got some Bosnian food tonight. They were awesome. Cafe Bosna, 33rd South, Main Street. It's in the weirdest place, but it's really good. 30th South and Main Street. So Cup Ads, come on up. I'm going to share Cup Ads lessons real quick. Cup Ad, last presenter of the night. What 3 lessons would you tell other entrepreneurs? First, time and people are the most important assets in a startup. Second, form a board of advisors as soon as possible and populate it with really smart people. And third, move quickly and be ready to adjust. So with that, Caleb, come on up and welcome Cup Ads to present.
Yeah, I too will second that Matt Hoffman is an extremely bright person. He's helped my business out tremendously through the Foundry and through this board of advisor type thing. So I am Caleb Light. I'm one of the co-founders of Cup Ad. It's just so quick and easy Cup Ad. We do coffee cup advertising on paper coffee cups. And the reason we thought this was interesting is the amount of coffee that's consumed daily in the United States. Roughly 54% of America, or 110 million adults, drink coffee every morning. But as you can see, kind of the corporate stands rule the market. But there are 25% that are privately owned small mom and pop shops that use plain white cups. So what exactly does that mean? That means that roughly 10 million plain white cups are used every single day in the US that are going out. So I think that's cool because that's the space that I want to be on. So how does Cup Ad work? We find an advertiser like Zag. They pay us some money, and then we print their cups, and then we put them in these small mom and pop coffee shops where their target demographic generally buys coffee. So why that would be significant is because, as this cup clearly explains, it takes 37 minutes for someone to consume a cup of coffee. So that's 37 minutes you get in front of someone. So, and another aspect of coffee cup advertising is 6 other people will be exposed to that advertisement. So it's kind of like a walking billboard. As they pick up their cup of coffee, they go into their office, they set it down. People are walking by, people are doing their thing. And Josh and I, my brother, we sat in coffee shops and watched people, what they do. We've actually counted how many times they reach down and grab the cup and drink it. And we found that on average it's 20 times, so that your brand is touched 20 times. and it's personal because they walk into the coffee shop. They generally go to places around their home where they have relationships with those people. So it's someone they know is handing your brand to them. And like I said earlier, we track the results through QR codes or unique URLs because it's all about proving the return on investment for advertisers. And then we target the specific demographics because ultimately that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that your cups are in front of the people that they need to be in front of. And then so those are kind of the primary benefits. And then there's some secondary benefits that I don't think very many people, it may not be kind of on the face value, but you in essence are co-branding with an item that is proven to make someone happier after consuming it. So your brand is in a situation to be in front of people at this time when they're proven to be happier, which I think is pretty cool. And then also, if you think about advertising and what advertisers try to accomplish is they try to insert their brands in front of people, their target customers, during their daily routine in a non-invasive way. And so at Cupad, we feel like we do a really good job at that because when they walk into the coffee shop, they ask for the cup, and then they take the cup with them, and they consume their coffee, they get happier, and your brand is in front of them. And so where we're at right now, we've done a few campaigns. We've distributed 60,000 cups through pretty much the western states, California, Oregon, Washington, and Utah. And we've used about 130 distribution partners, and we've compiled a list of about 15,000 coffee shops across the nation. Not quite the whole, well, yeah, that's roughly the whole small mom and pop shop target market. And so pretty much what we're looking for is, let's see. Oh yeah, and we have 4 sales guys that are pretty much completely trained. We've been going through this training process, and it's been quite difficult figuring out what exactly we need to train our reps to do or say or position Cupad so that they're successful, so they can successfully move companies through our sales pipeline. So if any of you guys have experience with that, I know Matt has, and he's helped us out a ton. We're kind of looking for that help, just some basic feedback on what we're doing. And also, if anyone's interested in selling or have leads, that's something we're always looking for. So this is my contact information. Do we have any questions? I'll keep it simple so you guys can get some food.
When you send these cups to a mom and pop shop that's serving coffee, they're having the same customers over and over. So are they getting the same advertising day after day, or are you mixing up that?
That pretty much just depends on what the advertiser wants. If they want to like completely saturate one area, then we'll obviously continue to saturate that stand. Or if they want to spread it out over a certain geographical location, then we'll spread it out and distribute the cups as quickly or as slowly as they'd like.
So from a revenue perspective, are the mom and pop shops paying or buying your cups?
No.
Or are they funded? These are free cups.
These are free cups that we give to them, and which actually would save them about $15,000 a year if we were able to give them all the cups that they would use.
It's funded by the advertiser.
So it's funded by the advertiser, yeah.
So what about like the hot sleeves that you put on a coffee cup?
So the cups that we use are called double-walled cups. It's kind of hard to see right here, but the sleeve's actually built into the cup. And there's actually another rendition now that came out that I'm looking at getting because I think it looks nicer than these ones. These are, I don't know, when we show people that the printing on them is really sharp, the cup's nice, it has a double-walled cup, which is kind of a cool feature. So, yeah, in the back.
Do you have larger ambitions for your website than just direct sales to the mom and pop shops and for the advertisers?
Yeah, we've been consulted by some smart people to build an ad network where we would actually allow coffee shops to sign up, which we've kind of done some Google forms to see what kind of people, if we would get stands to sign up, and we've got people to sign up via the internet without doing any sort of marketing. But what we'll do is make an ad network and allow advertisers to go on there, kind of design their cups, select the coffee stands, and launch a campaign all from behind their desk. So.
Have you ever thought of working with large cup manufacturers, splitting the revenue? I mean, there's like 100 times more right there.
Yeah, I've honestly never talked to them. We've talked to like coffee distributors in cities. The problem we've had is most of them have branded cups, and they don't like to give up that branding. So.
Can you give any indication of what you're charging advertisers and what the response rate's been?
Sure. So we charge in between 20 and like 30 cents a cup, depending on the quantities. And we've got in between, for one company that we did, we got 60 leads for them, and they're all like the average selling price or whatever was significantly high, and so it made sense for them. For Zag, with the consumer electronics, it didn't make as much sense, and so that's some tests we're running just to see what markets are the best fit for Cupad for the return on investment.
Have you guys thought about looking out past coffee, almost like a snow cone kind of thing?
Soda.
But coffee is just, it's repeat sales, addiction
Yeah,
sales.
yeah. We've thought about soda. The problem is that Pepsi and Coke kind of own that space. They brand every cup, and I think they do so for a reason. So.
Your QR code, so I'm assuming you want to bump that over to your advertiser's site, but for tracking purposes, are you doing a bounce page or something in order to get that, to track that hit?
Yeah, we would do like a landing page, some way of tracking it, or we do it through like a QR code generator that has analytics built into the back end. So, yes?
Since you have a captive audience for 37 minutes, have you considered using NFC to program tasks into those cups?
That is a really interesting idea, and I haven't thought about it. I've been thinking about the near field technology, correct? Communication? Yeah, and honestly, I haven't really looked into it. I will, though. That's really interesting. What's that, sorry?
We're going to be a test market for ISIS in Salt Lake.
Uh-huh. You guys are?
No, I don't.
Oh.
The Android phones
Got you.
are coming here. They're going to test market payment by phone.
Awesome. But it'll only work through the phones that they're bringing, right? Because, like,
I'm not sure which phones.
my Android won't work, right? Because it doesn't have the technology.
20% penetration.
The Galaxy, okay. Cool. Yes?
Are your cups biodegradable or recyclable?
These cups are not compostable, but we are looking at getting compostable cups. The runs that they want are a little too high for what we're doing at the moment, but we're looking into that option.
I was thinking along those lines as well, and there's a lot of soda, like retailers that use styrofoam that I think you could position as more of a green option.
Yeah, totally. Awesome.
Okay. Well, let's give. Thanks, Caleb. Well, here at LaunchUp, we have a tradition of honoring those companies who are willing to spend some time with us. And so I want to invite the presenters from each company to come on up, and we want to present them with an award. As every entrepreneur knows, you live lean, and so Top Ramen has really been one of the trademarks of LaunchUp. No real sponsorship, but we have these great awards here that they can keep on their desks. They say "break in case of emergency," and they've got the nice little LaunchUp logo there. So if you ever really get in a bind, here's some ramen for you. Matt, Caleb. Thanks. Yeah. It'll be a fond memory for years to come. Just a couple of quick announcements. Next LaunchUp will be December 1st. If you don't know the format, LaunchUp is the first Thursday of every month. Any month of the year, 12 months a year, first Thursday of every month. 5:30 to 6:30 is when we host kind of the mentoring sessions. Generally, we have technology gurus here, like Guy right here to help. If you have questions, come talk to Guy about technical issues. Usually we have attorneys here, business attorneys, IP attorneys. If you're looking at fundraising questions or formation issues or patent issues, trademark issues, come. It's free legal advice. Sometimes we have design mentors who can tell you that your logo sucks and that you should do something different or whatever. But great resources. And finally, before we split to eat, the last important part of LaunchUp is to really give to these companies. These companies put themselves out in front. They want feedback. They want your advice. There were some great questions, but we're going to do a corner dive. And the corner dive will send the presenter from each company to a particular area in the room, so you know that where they'll be. I'm going to put Cup Ad right here. we're going to put Brainiacs right here, and then in the back right corner, we're going to put Mobonics. And sorry, yeah, we'll put, there's Jenny. So, yeah, we'll put Jenny in the back right corner. And so take a moment, go over there, give them your feedback, share any contacts with them that you think are important. And otherwise, grab some food, have a great time. Thanks for coming, and mingle and get to know other people.